The cruelest part wasn't that I lost the bet. It was that somewhere along the way I lost myself to him. And God help me, I didn't even notice until it was already too late. It all started in a soulless corporate office in downtown Chicago, the kind where fluorescent lights hummed like mosquitoes and people smiled just enough to hide how much they wanted to scream. I had been working there for 3 years, surviving on caffeine, passive aggression, and the occasional hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd land a promotion. Then there was him, Ethan Walker, the smug bastard who sat 3 desks over and somehow made every single day feel like a competition. He was the type who showed up 5 minutes early just to make the rest of us look bad. The kind of guy who could close a deal with a wink and then brag about it in the break room like he just solved world hunger. I hated him. I really did. Or at least I thought I did. The bet happened on a Friday night when half the office had crammed itself into O'Malley's pub to celebrate surviving another week of mind-numbing spreadsheets. Someone, probably Marcus from accounting, that whiskey-soaked troublemaker, decided to stir the pot. He leaned across the table with a grin and said, "I bet you two couldn't fake date for a month without killing each other." The table erupted in laughter. Someone nearly spilled their beer. Ethan, of course, smirked that insufferable smirk of his and raised an eyebrow. "What's the prize?" he asked, like the challenge was beneath him, but he was still curious. Marcus grinned. "Loser has to buy the entire office lunch for a week. Winner gets bragging rights." That was all it took. Pride. Stupid, reckless pride. "I'm in," I said before my brain could catch up with my mouth. The words came out sharp, defiant, like I had something to prove. Ethan's smirk widened. "So am I." And just like that, the deal was sealed. A fake relationship, 30 days, whoever cracked first would pay dearly. I told myself it was nothing. A game. An act. Something I could sleepwalk through while keeping my heart barricaded. But I underestimated just how dangerous pretending could be. The first week was hell. We staged our first date at a coffee shop near the office, making sure to sit by the window so coworkers could accidentally pass by and see us. He leaned across the table, his hand dangerously close to mine, whispering jokes under his breath like we were lovers sharing secrets. I laughed when I was supposed to, smiled when eyes were on us, but inside, my chest burned with irritation. "You're enjoying this too much," I muttered when no one was looking. "Of course I am," Ethan said, sipping his cappuccino like a man who had never known shame. "You're easy to tease." "I hate you," I hissed. "Funny way of showing it." He winked, and for a second, just a second, my face grew hot. That became the pattern. Every outing, every carefully orchestrated date. He played the part too well. His hand on my shoulder, his laugh echoing too close to my ear, his eyes lingering in ways that felt less like acting and more like something I couldn't name. By the second week, my friends started commenting on how happy I looked. My boss pulled me aside and said it was nice to see me settling down. Even my mother, after a single glance at the staged photo Ethan posted of us at a pizza joint, texted me, "He looks good for you. Don't screw this up." I wanted to scream. It was fake. All of it was fake. And yet, late at night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop replaying his laugh. The way his eyes softened when no one else was watching. The warmth in his touch when he brushed against me, intentional or not. It was dangerous, because somewhere between the staged smiles and the whispered jokes, I stopped remembering where the acting ended and where reality began. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday. We were supposed to meet at a bookstore for one of our dates. I showed up first, drenched from the storm, cursing under my breath as I shook the water from my jacket. Ethan arrived 10 minutes later, looking annoyingly perfect despite the downpour. He spotted me instantly, and instead of his usual smirk, there was something softer in his expression. "You're soaked," he said, reaching out before I could protest. He tugged me closer, fussing with my jacket like it mattered. "Why didn't you bring an umbrella?" "Because I didn't think I'd need one," I snapped, but my voice lacked its usual bite. He smiled faintly, reckless as always. Something in me cracked then, something I didn't even realize I'd been holding together. It was the way he looked at Menet as a rival, not as part of some stupid bet, but like I was someone worth caring about. For the rest of the night, the world outside the bookstore could have vanished, and I wouldn't have noticed. We browsed the shelves, made snide comments about cheesy romance novels, argued over which authors were overrated. At one point, he reached up to grab a book from the top shelf, and when he handed it to me, our fingers brushed. It was electric. Too electric. I pulled away like I'd been burned, heart pounding in my throat. But Ethan only tilted his head, watching me with a curiosity that made my skin prickle. "You know," he said quietly, "you're not half as bad as I thought you'd be." The words shouldn't have mattered, but they did. God help me, they did. By the third week, the line between reality and pretense had dissolved into something I couldn't control. My phone buzzed with his texts at odd hours, memes, sarcastic comments, the occasional, startlingly sincere question. "How was your day? Did you eat?" I started looking forward to them. I started looking forward to him. And that terrified me more than anything. Because if this was just a game, then what did it mean that my heart sped up whenever he smiled at me? That my chest ached when I thought about the bet ending, about going back to being strangers or worse? Enemies? I didn't have an answer. But one night, sitting in his car after another date, the answer nearly broke free. We were parked outside my apartment, the rain tapping gently against the windshield. I should have left. I should have unbuckled my seatbelt, muttered a quick thanks, and escaped. But I didn't. I sat there, heart racing, while Ethan leaned back against the driver's seat, watching me with that unreadable expression of his. "You're quiet tonight," he said. "I'm tired," I lied. He didn't call me out on it. Instead, he reached across the console, his hand brushing mine. Just a touch, fleeting and cautious, but it sent a shiver through me. I froze. "Relax," he murmured. "I'm not going to bite." But God, I wanted him to, and that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a bet anymore. Not for me. And maybe, just maybe, not for him either. I told myself I could handle it, that I could draw a line between pretending and feeling. But every time Ethan looked at me like I was more than just his rival, more than just some stupid office bet, the line blurred until it practically disappeared. The next week should have been easier. We had already convinced half the office that we were disgustingly in love, and the other half too polite to comment. The hard part was supposed to be over, but in reality, every passing day turned into a test of how long I could keep my heart from betraying me. It started small, how my pulse jumped when Ethan brushed against me in the elevator, or how my chest tightened when he called me by my first name, softer than he ever had before. Then it grew. I caught myself staring at his smile longer than I should, memorizing the way his eyes crinkled at the edges when he laughed. I knew I was in trouble when my dreams started betraying me too. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, breathless, the echo of his touch lingering like a ghost. One afternoon, during lunch break, the office buzzed with gossip louder than usual. Someone had seen Ethan and me together at the bookstore. Another had spotted us walking too close near the Riverwalk. Rumors spread like wildfire, and suddenly we weren't just faking for the sake of the two were under a microscope. "You two are sickening," Marcus groaned at the break room table, shoving his sandwich aside. "It's like watching a Hallmark movie in real time." Ethan only grinned, leaning back in his chair. "Don't be jealous, Marcus. Not everyone can find love in a hopeless place." I kicked him under the table, but my face burned. It was supposed to be funny, just more acting. But the way he said love, even as a joke, stirred something dangerous in me. Later that evening, when the office emptied out, I caught Ethan packing his laptop into his bag. He glanced up and smirked. "Want a ride home?" I should have said no. I should have taken the train like I always did. But instead I nodded. The city blurred past the car windows, all neon signs and headlights. Neither of us spoke for a while. The silence should have been uncomfortable, but it wasn't. It was heavy with something unspoken, something neither of us dared to name. Finally, Ethan broke it. "So," he said casually, "how long do you think before Marcus cracks and admits he made the worst bet of his life?" I forced a laugh. "Probably next week. He already looks like he regrets it." "And you?" His voice dipped lower. Do you regret it? The question hit me like a punch. I glanced at him, heart thudding. What? He kept his eyes on the road, but his grip on the wheel tightened. Do you regret this? Us? It was a trap. A stupid, dangerous trap. I could feel the words forming on my tongue. I don't regret it, but I bit them back. My chest ached with the weight of what I couldn't say. Instead, I deflected. I regret ever meeting Marcus. Ethan chuckled, but the sound didn't reach his eyes. When he dropped me off, I lingered by the car door, wanting to say anything, but all that came out was a quiet, thanks. And then I walked away, pretending I didn't feel his gaze burning into my back. The fourth week arrived with the kind of chaos only our office could produce. A company retreat. 3 days in a cabin by the lake. Forced team-building exercises. Awkward icebreakers, and way too much alcohol. If hell had a waiting room, I was pretty sure it looked like this. Ethan, of course, thrived. He charmed the managers, dominated the trivia games, and somehow convinced half the office to join him in a late-night karaoke session. Meanwhile, I did what I always did, stayed in the background, surviving one awkward conversation at a time. But Fader Marcus wasn't going to let me off that easy. On the second night, after too many beers, Marcus smirked across the fire pit and said, "You two should share a room. Makes sense, doesn't it?" The group roared with approval. Before I could object, Ethan threw an arm around my shoulders and said, "Perfect idea," which is how I ended up lying awake on a lumpy cabin mattress, Ethan breathing softly just a few feet away. I turned on my side, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore how much space he took up, how the warmth of his presence seemed to fill the whole room. "Can't sleep?" His voice murmured in the dark. I nearly jumped. "No, too much noise." He chuckled. "You mean my snoring?" I rolled my eyes even though he couldn't see. "Exactly." There was a pause. Then his voice softened. "You know, for what it's worth, I'm glad it was you." My breath caught. "What?" "The bet," he said. "If I had to fake date anyone, I'm glad it's you." My chest tightened, a painful mix of joy and fear. I wanted to believe him, wanted to let myself fall, but the rational part of me screamed, "It's just part of the act. Don't be stupid." So I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered, "You're drunk. Go to sleep." But long after his breathing evened out, I lay awake, my heart racing with a truth I wasn't ready to face. The next morning, everything imploded. We were paired for a trust exercise, one person blindfolded, the other guiding them through an obstacle course. Of course, I got blindfolded, and of course, Ethan was my partner. The moment the fabric covered my eyes, panic prickled through me. I hated not being in control, hated the vulnerability of stumbling in the dark. "Relax," Ethan's voice whispered near my ear. His hand pressed gently against my back. "I've got you." Step by step, he guided me. His touch was steady, his voice calm, and for once, I let myself trust him. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. When I finally reached the end and pulled off the blindfold, our faces were too close. His eyes burned into mine, and for a second, the whole world disappeared. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. But suddenly, his lips were on mine. It was soft, hesitant, nothing like the reckless kiss I had imagined 1,000 times in my head. But it was real. Too real. My heart soared and then crashed. Because the moment I pulled away, reality came flooding back. The bet, the lies, the inevitable end. I shoved him back, my voice hoarse. "This isn't funny." Ethan's face darkened. "You think I'm joking? It's a game, Ethan." My chest heaved. "That's all this has ever been." Silence. His jaw tightened, and for the first time his confident mask cracked. "Maybe it started as a game," he said quietly. "But it's not anymore. At least not for me." My breath caught, but I couldn't let myself believe it. Couldn't risk it. So I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, broken in a way I'd never seen before. Back at the office, things fell apart fast. We barely spoke. When we did, it was short, sharp, professional. The fake relationship dissolved overnight, and people noticed. Whispers started again, coworkers casting curious glances like they were watching a soap opera play out in real life. Marcus cornered me in the break room one afternoon, raising an eyebrow. What the hell happened? You two were disgustingly cute, and now it's like a funeral every time you're in the same room. I shrugged, forcing a laugh. Guess the honeymoon phase ended. But inside, I was unraveling. Every time I saw Ethan's empty smile, every time I caught him avoiding my eyes, it felt like someone was carving pieces out of me. I told myself it was for the best, that I was protecting myself from disappointment, from heartbreak. But the truth was simple and devastating. I missed him. I missed him like hell, and I had no idea how to fix it. The silence between us grew heavier with each passing day. What had once been playful banter now turned into clipped conversations about deadlines and clients. We'd walk past each other in the hallways like strangers, though every step felt like dragging chains across the floor. I kept telling myself this was what I wanted, that if I just waited long enough, the ache in my chest would fade. That if I ignored him, ignored the memories of his laugh, his touch, that stupid kiss that still burned on my lips, then maybe I could go back to the way things were before. But I couldn't. The truth was everywhere in the way my eyes instinctively searched for him the moment I walked into the office, in the way my pulse quickened when I heard his voice even across the room. Pretending he didn't matter was the hardest acting I'd ever done, and I was losing the role miserably. It was a Tuesday morning when things finally cracked. The office buzzed with activity phones ringing, printers spitting out reports, managers barking orders. I was half buried in emails when I overheard a conversation near the break room. Heard Ethan might be transferring to the New York branch. The words sliced through me like a knife. Yeah. Another voice chimed in. Apparently, they want him to lead the expansion project there. Big opportunity. My chest tightened. New York. He hadn't said a word to me. Not one. I tried to focus on my screen, but the words blurred. My fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. The idea of him leaving gone from the office, from the city, from my life was suffocating. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my thoughts spiraling. If he left without knowing how I really felt, if he walked away thinking all of this had been meaningless, I would never forgive myself. But fear was a powerful prison. Fear of rejection, fear of being wrong, fear of confirming that for him, it had all been nothing more than a game. So I stayed silent. The following week, the company hosted a networking gala at a downtown hotel. Everyone was expected to attend, dressed in suits and plastered smiles, schmoozing with clients and pretending we weren't all exhausted. I hated these events. The small talk, the fake laughter, the endless waiters circling with champagne glasses. But this time, my nerves were shot for an entirely different reason. Ethan looked devastating. He wore a tailored navy suit that fit like it had been made just for him, his blonde hair styled effortlessly, his eyes sharp and searching. He worked the room with ease, shaking hands, charming clients, and all the while, I stood in the corner nursing a drink, pretending not to watch him. Halfway through the night, he found me. "Enjoying yourself?" he asked, his voice cool, polite like we were acquaintances. Not two people who had once shared whispered secrets in the dark. I forced a smile. "About as much as I enjoy root canals." He smirked faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Figures." There was a pause, thick with everything unspoken. I opened my mouth to say anything but before I could, a client swept him away, and just like that, he was gone again. I wanted to scream. Instead, I left early, slipping out into the cold night air. The city stretched out before me, lights blurring against the dark sky, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry. 2 days later, the inevitable happened. "Did you hear?" Marcus cornered me at my desk, eyes wide. "Ethan accepted the transfer. He's leaving next month." The world tilted. I forced myself to nod, to feign indifference. Good for him. But my voice cracked, betraying me. Marcus tilted his head, studying me. "You don't mean that." "I do," I insisted. "You don't," he said flatly. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice. Look, I don't know what went down between you two, but if you let him leave without telling him how you feel, you're an idiot. I glared at him. Stay out of it. He raised his hands in surrender, but his eyes said it all. He wasn't wrong. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone, Ethan's number glowing on the screen. My thumb hovered over the call button for what felt like hours. But in the end, I couldn't do it. Because if he didn't feel the same, I wasn't sure I'd survive the answer. The office threw Ethan a farewell party on his last Friday. Streamers, cake, the usual forced cheer. Everyone gathered around, offering congratulations, clapping him on the back, showering him with well wishes. I stood in the back, heart in my throat, watching as he smiled and thanked everyone. When our eyes met across the room, something flickered there, something raw, unguarded. But before I could move, before I could cross the distance, someone else grabbed his attention, and the moment was gone. When it was over, people trickled out, leaving behind half-eaten cake and empty cups. I lingered by the doorway, watching him pack up his things. His desk, once cluttered with papers and coffee mugs, now sat bare. He looked up and froze when he saw me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I forced the words out. So, this is it. Yeah. His voice was quiet. This is it. I swallowed hard. Congratulations. You deserve it. Thanks. He hesitated, then added, I guess I'll see you around. It was the kind of line people said when they knew they wouldn't. I nodded, my throat burning. Yeah. See you. And then I walked away because if I didn't, I was going to break right there in front of him. The weekend was a blur. I tried everything: Netflix marathons, long runs through the park, drowning myself in takeout, but nothing filled the hollow ache inside me. Sunday night, I found myself at O'Malley's pub, the same place where the bet had started. I sat at the bar nursing a beer, staring at the same neon signs, the same worn-out booths, but everything felt different. Because this time I wasn't laughing. I wasn't competing. I wasn't pretending. I was just empty. That's when Marcus slid into the seat beside me. You look like hell, he said cheerfully. Thanks, I muttered. He ordered a drink, then turned to me. So what's the plan? There is no plan, I said. Wrong answer. He leaned closer. You're in love with him. I slammed my glass down. It doesn't matter. He's leaving. Then stop him. I barked a laugh. And what? Chase him to New York like some bad rom-com? Marcus smirked. Why not? I shook my head, but his words dug deep. Stop him. Tell him. Don't let him walk away without knowing. That night I barely slept. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Monday was Ethan's last day in Chicago. His flight to New York was that evening. I left work early, heart pounding as I drove to the airport. Every red light felt like torture. Every passing second another chance I was about to lose forever. By the time I parked and sprinted into the terminal, panic clawed at my chest. I scanned the crowd desperately, searching for blonde hair, for that familiar suit jacket. And then I saw him, standing by the gate, boarding pass in hand, suitcase at his side. My legs moved before my brain could catch up. Ethan, I shouted, breathless. He turned, shock flashing across his face. What are you doing here? I skidded to a stop in front of him, chest heaving. I can't let you go. He blinked, stunned. What? I swallowed hard, the words tumbling out before fear could stop me. I can't let you go without telling you the truth. The bet stopped being a game for me a long time ago. And my voice cracked. I love you. The crowd around us blurred, the announcements echoing overhead fading into static. All that existed was him, standing there with wide eyes, his mouth slightly open. For a moment, silence stretched between us, unbearable and fragile. Then, slowly, he set down his suitcase. You idiot, he whispered. And before I could react, he pulled me into his arms and kissed me. It was nothing like the first kiss. This was desperate, fierce, full of every word we hadn't said. My hands fisted in his jacket, his fingers tangled in my hair, and the world erupted in cheers and whistles from strangers who didn't even know our names. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, he pressed his forehead against mine. "I was hoping you'd stop me," he murmured. "Because I love you too." My heart soared, flooding with a joy so intense it hurt. And for the first time in weeks, I believed in happy endings. Airports are strange places to fall in love. People rush through them, running toward beginnings and endings, clutching suitcases, saying goodbyes that split hearts wide open. But there I was, kissing Ethan Walker like the world might stop spinning if I didn't, while strangers applauded as though we were actors in some romantic comedy. When the noise finally died down and he pulled back, I stared at him, dazed. My pulse hammered in my ears. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I had spent weeks convincing myself this was a game, that none of it was real, and in one kiss, he'd shattered every lie I told myself. Ethan brushed his thumb against my cheek, his voice low. "I don't care about the bet. I don't care about the office. Care about you. That's all that matters." The words burned into me, leaving nothing but truth in their wake. I gripped his hand like it was the only solid thing in the world. "So, what happens now?" He chuckled softly. "Now I miss my flight." He didn't get on the plane. We drove back into the city, both of us too wired to sit still. We ended up at the lakefront, sitting on the hood of his car with the skyline glowing behind us. The night was quiet, only the gentle ripple of water and the occasional hum of traffic filling the silence. For a long time, neither of us spoke. It wasn't awkward, it was overwhelming. Like if we opened our mouths too soon, the moment might vanish. Finally, Ethan broke it. "You know, when Marcus dared us, I thought it would be hilarious to watch you squirm. I thought I'd win, like always. But then," his voice softened. "Somewhere along the line, I didn't want to win anymore. I just wanted to keep looking at you." My throat tightened. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was terrified," he admitted. "I thought if I told you the truth, you'd laugh in my face. Or worse, you'd walk away." I let out a shaky laugh. "Funny. I thought the same thing." We sat there, two idiots who had nearly let fear ruin everything. Then, slowly, I leaned against him, resting my head on his shoulder. He wrapped an arm around me, pulling me closer, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. The weeks after were messy. Not because we doubted what we felt, no, that part was solid, unshakable. The mess came from navigating the fallout. Word spread through the office like wildfire. By Monday morning, everyone knew about the airport scene. Someone had even recorded a blurry video of our kiss and uploaded it to TikTok, where it inexplicably went viral under the caption, "Corporate enemies to lovers IRL." Marcus nearly choked on his coffee when he saw it. "You two broke the internet," he wheezed. "I can't believe my dumb bet turned into this." I buried my face in my hands. "Kill me now." Ethan only grinned, slinging an arm around my shoulder. "Relax. Free publicity." "Publicity for what?" I groaned. "For us," he said simply, as if the entire world had already accepted us as a brand. Not everyone was thrilled. A few coworkers muttered under their breath about professionalism and distractions. HR called us into a meeting to ensure our relationship wasn't causing a conflict of interest. We sat side by side in that sterile office, trying not to laugh as the HR rep asked if we understood company policies about workplace romance. "Yes," Ethan said solemnly. "No PDA in the break room. We promise." I elbowed him in the ribs, but even I had to fight a smile. Outside of work, though, it wasn't as simple. Introducing Ethan to my family was nerve-wracking. My mother had suspected for months, but hearing me say, "Mom, this is Ethan. He's my boyfriend," made her tear up instantly. "You look happy," she said, pulling me into a hug. "That's all I ever wanted." Ethan charmed her within an hour, of course. By dessert, she was already telling him embarrassing childhood stories about me, and I knew I'd lost control of the narrative forever. His family was trickier. His father was polite but distant, his mother hesitant. But Ethan stood tall, his hand clasping mine tightly, and said, This is who I love. Get used to it. The room went quiet, tense. But slowly his mother smiled, eyes softening. If he makes you happy, that's enough for me. His father didn't say much, but he shook my hand firmly before we left. It was a start. There were bumps, of course. Some nights, fear still crept in. What if it was too good to last? What if one of us got cold feet or the pressure from work, family, society crushed us? But every time doubt clawed at me, Ethan was there steady, unyielding. He'd brush his fingers through my hair, tilt my chin up, and say, "Stop overthinking. I'm not going anywhere." And for once, I believed it. Months passed. Seasons shifted. Our love settled into something real, something lasting. We still bickered, of course, Ethan leaving his socks on the floor, me hogging the blankets at night. We teased each other mercilessly, argued over takeout orders, fought about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. But beneath it all, there was a tenderness I had never known. A safety. A home. One evening, we returned to O'Malley's, the bar where it all began. The same neon lights buzzed, the same sticky tables, the same smell of fried food lingering in the air. We slid into a booth, drinks in hand, and looked at each other with a mix of disbelief and awe. "Can you believe it?" I asked, shaking my head. "All of this started because of a stupid bet." Ethan smirked. "Best bet I ever lost." I laughed, but my chest swelled with something deeper. Gratitude. Love. The knowledge that sometimes the worst beginnings lead to the best endings. He reached across the table, lacing his fingers through mine. "So, what do you think? Still hate me?" I pretended to think, tapping my chin. Jury's still out." He rolled his eyes and leaned over the table to kiss me, slow and sure. Liar. And maybe I was. Because the truth was, I didn't just love him. I couldn't imagine a life without him. That night, lying tangled together in the quiet glow of our apartment, I thought about everything we'd been through. The rivalry, the bet, the heartbreak, the airport, the laughter, the fear, the love that had blindsided me when I least expected it. And I realized something. For so long, I had been afraid of losing. Losing control, losing face, losing the game. But with Ethan, losing the bet was the best thing that had ever happened to me. Because in losing, I had won everything. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.